Okay, welcome back in. I'm going to be reviewing Monday's action from the National Hockey League. There were a total of 6 games on tap, so let's dive in. Starting in the Big Apple as the New York Rangers played host to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Nikita Kucherov kicked things off with the Lightning in the first, getting his 34th goal of the season on the power play from Braden Point and Jake Gensel. Not even a minute after that, Yanni Gore would increase the lead to 2-0, getting his 7th goal of the season, assisted by Goncalves and Victor Hedman. Just over a minute after that, Braden Point would increase the lead to 3-0, getting his 40th of the season, a power play goal from Jake Gensel and Nikita Kucherov. So Lightning had a 3-0 lead at that point. Mika Zibanejad would finally get the Rangers on the board in the second, getting his 17th goal of the year on the power play from Panarin and JT Miller, 3 minutes and 16 seconds to be exact. In the third period, Braden Point would get his second goal of the game, his 41st goal of the season, on the power play from Jake Gensel and Nikita Kucherov. That trio is just unreal. Look how many assists Kucherov has. 81 assists. Unfriggin' real. The Rangers would pull their goalie down by 3 goals, hoping for a miracle. Unfortunately, didn't happen. Brandon Hagel would get the empty net goal, his 35th of the season, from Ryan McDonough. 17 minutes and 18 seconds of the third, so the Lightning would win big, 5-1. The Winnipeg Jets played host to the St. Louis Blues. There was no scoring in the first. In the second, Morgan Barron would break the tie, getting his 7th goal of the season from Josh Morrissey, 2 minutes and 34 seconds of the second period. Pavel Volzhnevich would tie the game up at 1, getting his 18th goal of the season from Robert Thomas and Philip Broberg, 7:27 of the second period. Heading into the third period, we were tied up at 1. 7:05 of the third, Alex Iafallo would break the tie, getting his 14th goal of the season from Kyle Connor. He's fitting in quite nicely on that top line with the absence of Gabriel Velarde, giving the Jets a 2-1 lead. Late in the third, with 9 seconds to go, the Blues did pull their goalie. Unfortunately, they could not tie the game up, so their winning streak would stop at 12. Adam Lowry would get his 16th goal of the season, assisted by Mark Scheifele. So the Jets got a huge win over an opponent that they could possibly see in the first round of the playoffs. The Edmonton Oilers were in Anaheim to take on the Ducks. Adam Henrique would score against his former team, open up the scoring with just over 2 minutes to go in the first, getting his 11th goal of the year from Wallman and Corey Perry. In the second, Cutter Gauthier would get his 16th goal of the season from Leo Carlson, 2 minutes and 20 seconds of the second. Cutter Gauthier would get his second goal of the game, his 17th of the season from Helson and Lundstrom, 7 minutes and 10 seconds of the second, giving the Ducks a 2-1 lead. Mason McTavish would increase the lead to 3-1, getting his 21st goal of the season from Zegras, 5:33 of the third period. Jeff Skinner would score, cutting the lead to 3-2, getting his 16th goal of the season from Evan Bouchard and Adam Henrique, 16:29 of the third. Unfortunately for the Oilers, they were not able to tie the game up or send it to overtime. So 2 losses to the Ducks in less than a week. It's looking very bleak for the Oilers for a cup run this spring. The Los Angeles Kings, who coming into this game, they still do, had the best home record of the entire National Hockey League. Of course, Seattle had to play spoiler. Quinton Byfield would open up the scoring for the Kings in the first, getting his 20th goal of the year from Burroughs and Lafayette, 1:48 of the first period. With 1 minute and 25 seconds to go in the first, Matty Beniers would tie the game up at 1, getting his 19th goal of the season from Alexiak and Capo Caco. With 31 seconds to go in the first, Brandon Montour would break the tie, getting his 17th goal of the year, assisted by Eberle and Chandler Stevenson. So the Kraken would win 2-1, spoiling the Kings' home winning streak. All right, I believe the last game from Monday took place in San Jose as the Sharks played host to the Calgary Flames. Will Smith would kick things off for the Sharks with 25 seconds to go in the first, getting his 15th goal of the season, assisted by Kovalenko and Celebrini. Adam Klapka would tie the game up at 1, 8 minutes and 12 seconds of the third, getting his 4th goal of the year from Kadri and Ball, 8 minutes and 12 seconds of the third, as I just previously said. Jonathan Hooper would break the tie with exactly 9 minutes to go, getting a power play goal, his 28th of the season from Morgan Frost and Mackenzie Weegar. Matt Coronado would increase the lead to 3-1 with 4.5 minutes to go, getting his 22nd goal of the season unassisted. Will Smith would score a late power play goal with just under 2 minutes to go. For Smith, that'd be his 16th goal of the season from Liljegren and Celebrini. Unfortunately, the Sharks were not able to tie it up, so 3-2 would be the final score in this one. Let's take a look at the standings from the National Hockey League now. So I'm just going to scroll this down a little bit. There you go. So the team on the very top is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are still in first place in the Atlantic. They have a record of 47, 25, and 4. They have 98 points. They're 1 win away from getting to 100 points on the season. The Tampa Bay Lightning are just 2 points behind them. They have a record of 45, 26, and 6. They have 96 points. And the Florida Panthers have a record of 44, 29, and 4. They have 92 points. At one point during this season, maybe just even a week ago, these teams were only separated by 2 points. And now you can start to see that teams are starting to get a little ahead. And the Florida Panthers, who unfortunately are injury-plagued this late in the season, are probably not going to finish in first place, but they should possibly finish third in the division pending the outcome of the Senators and their schedule. All right, off to the Metropolitan Division as the Washington Capitals still hold first place in that division. They have a record of 49, 19, and 9. They have 107 points on the season. The Carolina Hurricanes are in second place with a record of 46, 26, and 4. They have 96 points. The New Jersey Devils, rounding out the top 3, are 41, 29, and 7. They have 89 points with 5 games remaining. 2 teams in the wild card look like this. The Ottawa Senators have a record of 42, 29, and 6. They have 90 points. They're just 2 points back of Florida. So if Ottawa happens to win one more game and say Florida happens to lose another game, Ottawa could bump up and be in the top 3, and Florida could finish as a wild card team. Imagine that. That would be pretty wild. Defending Stanley Cup champions as well. My beloved Montreal Canadiens, they're still in a playoff spot. After 77 games played, they have a record of 38, 30, and 9. They have 85 points on the season. Now I'll take a look at the teams that are just below them in the standings. And I just want to highlight the Red Wings and the Rangers, because I believe these 2 teams, if any team could pull off an upset and go on a crazy run, it would be the Red Wings or the Rangers. The Wings have one more game on hand than the Rangers do. They have a record of 36, 33, and 7. The Rangers have a record of 36, 34, and 7. For Detroit, again, it might be a bit of a hill to climb for them to get back into the postseason after nearly a decade. 6 points out of the playoff spot, but again, like I said, they do have a game in hand on both Montreal and New York. So a critical game, I believe, is coming up on Tuesday night between the Red Wings and the Montreal Canadiens. I firmly believe that if the Red Wings happen to win in Montreal, there'll be 4 points separated them and Montreal for that last playoff spot, which will make things very interesting. However, if Montreal happens to win, Detroit would be 8 points back with 5 games remaining on the schedule, and I think that's just an impossible hill to climb. As for the Rangers, it's kind of odd how they had such an amazing season just last year, and now they've kind of crumbled apart, and they really haven't done a whole lot of additions and subtractions. Yes, you could say they added JT Miller, they got rid of a few players as well, but for the most part, they still have Zibanejad, they still got Panarin, they still got Lafreniere. They still have a lot of the same players that they won the President's Trophy with just a year ago, and they still have one of the best goalies in the league, Igor Shesterkin. And Adam Fox is a stud on defense, so it's just a little puzzling as to why the Rangers have struggled this year when they were so dominant just a season ago. And it's very possible that they could miss out on the playoffs because they are 6 points out of the playoff spot, and with 5 games remaining. And unfortunately, they'd never play Montreal the rest of the season. So it's kind of out of their hands as to how Montreal is going to do compared to how the Rangers are going to do. New York Islanders find themselves 7 points out of a playoff spot with 6 games remaining. I just don't think it's possible that they're going to be able to play catch-up. They'd have to win 4 games in a row or 5 games in a row just to be able to get into a playoff spot. And by that point, I feel like Montreal and Detroit and the Rangers, they're all going to win at least one more game. So I think the Islanders season could very well be likely done, unfortunately. The Columbus Blue Jackets, they were a very good story at the start of the year. Obviously, the passing of Johnny Gaudreau inspired the guys to play for him and his family. And for a while, Columbus was in a playoff spot, but then unfortunately they lost several games in a row, and now their season is likely out of reach. They're 8 points back with 6 games remaining, so they would have to win all 6 games and hope that the Islanders, Rangers, the Red Wings, and Montreal all lose like 4 and 6 games respectively. And let's be honest, that's not happening. The Buffalo Sabres somehow still are alive in a playoff spot, even though they're 11 points out. One more loss, and they will officially be eliminated. And the only way that Buffalo can make the playoffs, just like Columbus, they'd have to go and win 6 games in a row and hope that the teams that are above them go on 6 and 5 game losing streaks respectively. And I just don't see that happening. So I believe it's going to now be 14 years in a row that there's not going to be any playoff hockey in the city of Buffalo. But at least they still have the Bills. All right, I'm also go through the last 3 teams in the Eastern Conference. They all have an E beside them, which means they are technically eliminated right now from the playoffs. Pittsburgh Penguins are missing the playoffs for the 3rd straight season. They have a record of 31, 35, and 12. They have 74 points. The Philadelphia Flyers have a record of 31, 37, and 9. They have 71 points. They're now going to miss the playoffs for the 5th straight season in a row. The Boston Bruins are going to miss the playoffs for the first time since, I believe, 2014, 2015, if I'm not mistaken, or 2015, 2016. It was roughly around one of those 2 years that they did not make the playoffs. They have a record of 31, 38, and 9. And it's not too crazy to think that just a month or 2 ago they were in a playoff spot, and then unfortunately they just kind of let the wheels fall out from underneath them, and they've been going downhill, to say the least. All right, now let's take a look at the teams in the Western Conference, and I should have all 6 teams for the division lead at least. The Winnipeg Jets, after their huge win last night, have a 5-point lead on Dallas. They have a record of 53, 21, and 4. They have 4 games remaining on their schedule, so they'd still have to win out at least 3 of those games, I believe, if they want to clinch that division, because Dallas has a game on hand, and they're only 5 points back, so Dallas only needs 3 wins to play catch-up, and Dallas is playing very well. And I'm going to be honest with you, if I had to pick between Winnipeg and Dallas being a bigger threat in the West, I'm going to go with Dallas, just because look at the roster that they have. They've been to back-to-back conference championships. This team is legit, and they are going to be a threat in the West. The Colorado Avalanche are in 3rd place with a record of 47, 27, and 4. They have 98 points on the year. They've already clinched the playoff spots, and whether they play the Stars or the Jets in the first round, it'll be an epic series, but I think it'd be even more epic if they played Dallas, only because Mikko Rantanen, a former Avalanche, would play against his former team. The Vegas Golden Knights are in 1st place at the Pacific Division. No surprise there. They have a record of 47, 22, and 8. They have 5 games remaining, 102 points on the season so far. The Los Angeles Kings are sitting comfortably in 2nd place with a record of 44, 24, and 9. They have 97 points. I don't think the Kings are going to be too upset if they can't get into 1st place. Just the fact that they're going to have home ice advantage over likely Edmonton in the 1st round, that will be huge for this Kings squad to possibly see a 2nd round berth for the first time since 2014, 2015, something like that, or 2016, whatever it is. No, 2015. All right, the Edmonton Oilers are reeling at the worst possible time. All 3 teams have 5 games remaining. If the Oilers were to play catch-up and take over 2nd place in that division, they'd have to win at least 3 games in a row and hope that LA loses 3 games in a row. The way the Kings have been playing, yes, they did lose last night to Seattle, but I still feel pretty strong that the Kings are going to finish 2nd in that Pacific Division, which will make things very difficult for the Oilers, especially because they've been struggling since the Four Nations face-off. I'm pretty sure they have a below 500 record, which is not where you want to be when the playoffs are around the corner. All right, the 2 teams in the wild card look like this. I'm just going to scroll back down. There we go. Both from the Central Division, the St. Louis Blues, who saw their 12-game winning streak come to an end, but still they have been playing amazing hockey, especially in the month of March and April. They have a record of 43, 29, and 7. They have 93 points with 3 games remaining on the schedule. If they were to win out, say, 2 of the last 3 games, they likely could solidify themselves in that first wildcard spot. Minnesota's just 2 points behind them, however, with a game in hand. So if Minnesota happens to win their last game of the season, they could bump St. Louis back down to the second wildcard position. But either way, whoever plays St. Louis in the first round, good luck. Because just because you're a wildcard team doesn't mean that you just narrowly got into the playoffs like Washington did last year. This team is red hot, and they're going to be scary, whoever they face in the first round. And as for Minnesota, they'll just be happy to be back in the postseason after missing it last year. The team that's chasing Minnesota, and likely, if I had to guess between the Flames and the Canucks, who's going to give Minnesota the hardest time, I'd say probably Calgary. They're only 4 points back of Minnesota, and the crazy thing is they play each other this week. So if Calgary happens to win their next game and say their game against Minnesota, they could pull with even with Minnesota on their record. And even if for some reason Calgary loses the next game and then they win against Minnesota, then they're only going 2 points back, which will make things very interesting to see how this season's going to end, who's going to get that final wild card spot. So just because Minnesota is in a playoff position right now, don't look in your rearview mirror because the Flames are right there. The Flames' record is 37, 27, and 13, 87 points with 5 games remaining. All right, so I might as well do the teams that are still technically alive. The Vancouver Canucks, who I previously just talked about, have a record of 35, 29, and 13. They have 83 points on the season. They're 8 points back out of a playoff spot with 5 games remaining. The only way the Canucks are going to make the playoffs is if they win all 5 games and Calgary and Minnesota all lose the remaining schedule. But oh wait, I just finished saying that Calgary and Minnesota are playing each other this week. So good luck with that. And more than likely, Vancouver is going to be looking towards next season. It's crazy to think that this team won the Pacific Division just a year ago, and now they're likely going to miss the playoffs. They're in a similar situation as like the Rangers. Just had they had too much drama, too much off ice antics, and here you go. This is the result of that. The Utah Hockey Club. They're not technically eliminated, but they're 9 points back with 5 games remaining. Utah would again, just like if they had any shot in hell of making it, they'd have to win their last 5 games and hope that the 3 teams above them are going to lose as well. I just don't see it happening. But for being this late in the season and the fact that they still are not technically eliminated, it just goes to show that this core group, they have definitely improved from last year being in Arizona to this year being in Utah. I'll just put it this way. If you're a Utah Hockey Club fan, one more loss and you will officially have an E beside your name. So it could happen as early as tonight, tomorrow, whenever the next game takes place. All right, might as well do the rest of the teams in the West. The Anaheim Ducks are sitting with a record of 34, 35, and 8. They have 76 points with 5 games remaining. The Seattle Kraken have a record of 34, 38, and 6 with 4 games remaining, 74 points on the season. The Nashville Predators, horrendous season, 27, 42, and 8. They have 62 points with 5 games to go. The Chicago Blackhawks have a record of 22, 45, and 10 with 5 games to go. Good for 54 points. And the San Jose Sharks are still in last place of the Western Conference and the league, for that matter. They have a record of 20, 47, and 10. They have 50 points exactly. All right, that's going to take care of this recap from Monday's action of the National Hockey League. The season will be winding down. I believe next week at some point the season will be over and the playoffs get started next weekend. And I could not be more ecstatic about that. All right, as always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative as well. Until next time, and as always, take care.